Many of the facts contained in the new indictment against Donald Trump came from the House January 6 committee's investigation into the attack and what led up to it. As California Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, a member of that committee, wrote in a recent op-ed on MSNBC.com, "At the time, I knew what we were doing was important, but until recently, I didn't understand the true gravity of our work in terms of holding the former president legally accountable." She went on to say, if our findings kicked the DOJ into gear, our work on the Select Committee was even more worthwhile. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren joins us this morning. I'm grateful to see you, Congresswoman. Thank you. I want to begin by getting your thoughts on the indictment.
Well, it's not a shock because we expected that it was coming, but you know, it's a mixture of sadness that it's come to this, that a former president would engage in conduct so wrong that it would require an indictment, along with a sense of hopefulness that we are still a nation of laws and no person is above the law. So those were my two reactions.
Yes, sir. And you said in your MSNBC.com op-ed that the special counsel was validating the work of the committee. What part or parts do you think were validated?
Well, as I skimmed through, I mean, I want to go line by line, but it looks like the facts were as we outlined them in the committee. It was a multifaceted conspiracy to overturn the election. And as the indictment goes through the elements, it's really what the committee was able to uncover. Now, there's some things in the indictment that we didn't find because we were unable to interview some people. I was struck, for example, that the vice president relayed that when he refused to go along with the plot to overturn the election, that ex-President Trump said, well, you're too honest. We didn't find that because weren't able to talk to the vice president. But I think that statement alone shows that Trump knew he was wrong, that he was being devious and engaging in unlawful activity, and that the vice president was unwilling to be dishonest along with him.
Yeah, you know, the committee sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department that also suggested that Trump should be charged with inciting or assisting those in an insurrection. He was not charged directly in connection with the January 6th attack. Is that, you think, something that we'd like to see, that you'd like to see down the road?
Well, we believe that there was evidence to support the incitement charge, but I trust the special prosecutor for evaluating the evidence and indicting only what he thinks can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no question that, as Mr. McConnell said right after the attack, he's morally responsible. Trump is morally responsible for the attack. But whether there's enough evidence to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, apparently Mr. Smith was being very conservative on that point. But the other charges were along the lines of what we referred, and they're certainly sufficient to really make the point, which is that Trump was trying to really overturn the Constitution, overturn a free and fair election that he lost so he could keep power. So I think what the special prosecutor has done is prudent, and I believe will be supported when the trial is held.
And Congresswoman, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy tweeted out after the announcement saying that the Justice Department was trying to distract from the news about Hunter Biden and that there is a two-tiered system of justice in the United States. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, that was the talking point sent by Trump. It was issued before McCarthy had even seen the indictment. I think it's kind of pathetic that the Republicans in the House are reading from the talking points from the defendant rather than going through the indictment and seeing the serious charges that have been made. We'll find out what can be proven when the trial is held. This is not political. This is judicial. Apparently the Republicans in the House are like lemmings. They're going to go right off that cliff with the ex-president. It's interesting that the Senate Republicans have been more silent. And I think it may reflect the comments that Mr. McConnell made right after the attack. McConnell said that Trump was guilty of inciting this effort to overturn the election, and that he didn't vote to impeach, to convict, because he wasn't in office, but that he should be held accountable and referred the need for criminal prosecution, which is what we have now.
You know, Congressman, just thinking back on what you were saying about how, you know, your reaction included sadness. When you look back on the work of the January 6th committee, what do you think is going to be the overweighing, I guess, role and impact that committee had on just American history?
Well, I think, at the time I didn't fully realize it, but I don't think the Department of Justice was focusing in on the scheme. They were focusing in on the foot soldiers, the rioters themselves. And when the committee uncovered evidence about this wide-ranging, multifaceted plot, and the ex-president was at the center of the plot, I think the Department of Justice had to say, this needs to be looked at. And so that's an important role that the committee played. Our job was really to tell the American people what happened. And I think we did that. We worked really hard, and we were honest about what we found. And we made all the evidence available to the public, including the Department of Justice. So I think our role in history will be a group that was bipartisan, worked hard, told the truth, uncovered the plot, and perhaps spurred the Department of Justice to open their eyes.